Hello guys, welcome back to Lartman Farms, and then to this particular series where we are teaching you backyard fish farming. In this particular tank, we stock with quite a number of fish, and in just a couple of days, we've lost over 50% of the fish that we have in this tank. That is tilapia. So to recount the event, in the course of the week, as you guys know, I visit a lot of farms. I do a lot of stuff in the course of the weekend, so I have to myself only Saturdays sometimes. So I woke up around like 6 a.m. to do my regular chores that I have in my house. And then I came close to the tank and I realized that there were a lot of the fish that were dead. During that time, there were a lot of things I realized. I had my aerator still functioning, so just like this. But then the only challenge I realized was that the bubbles that were supposed to come out from the aerators, as in like the capacity or the current, had reduced. After I got here, I realized that the bubbles were a bit lower than they were supposed to, and there were a lot of the fish all over the top of the tank floating dead. So the quick inspection I did was what could have caused this. So I realized that there was an entanglement with the air tube, and it had reduced drastically the amount of oxygen that was released into the tank. Two, I also realized that I had stocked quite an amount of fish, a lot of fish. I intentionally tried it out to see the resistance level of the fish. And then the third bit of it was I was also feeding intensively, and then I wasn't changing the water as regular as I was supposed to. So what I decided to do was, first of all, take out all of the dead fish out. There were a lot. I would even say I probably lost more than 50% of the fish I had in this particular tank. Then the next thing to do is to do a quick water change. So I opened the valve and then I allowed some of the water to go out. I even think I did almost 100% water change. And then the next thing to do is to, because I had changed the water and then I had new water in the tank, I put on the aerators and then to just see how my fish would behave. I realized that a lot of the fish that remained in the tank were acting very healthy and stuff, but then I decided to halt with feeding. So that was what happened in this particular tank. But then the other tanks, the catfish, they were a bit okay. And then the tank that wasn't aerated, they were very, very much okay. Meanwhile, this tank was actually full. If you watch the previous episodes, you realize that this tank is full to capacity. Now, when we talk about water quality, it's basically around what you are going to use the water for. And then secondly, what kind of species are you trying to culture? If you know the parameters that works with the species. So for example, because these fish are freshwater fish, that's the tilapia behind me and the catfish behind me, they are freshwater fish. We know the parameters that they want, okay? So then we get water, or we try and get some water that would be able to meet those parameters, and then we can use that to farm. So as I am using in my backyard, I'm using pipe-borne. Other farmers use boreholes, rainwater, well water, and what have you. But one of the properties about water quality is that when it comes to the quality of water in your fish tank, okay, water quality is not static, okay? It means that water quality changes with time. So the fact that you had water in a tank doesn't mean that the water quality is going to be the same from time to time. No, it is going to change. And that is the situation that every farmer needs to understand. If you understand that first bit, then the second bit will be that what are the causes of changes in your water quality? And for you to have changes in your water quality, there are two factors. We have the natural factors and then the artificial factors. So for the natural factors, the first thing I'll look out for will be around climate. The climate at the time could impact your water quality a lot more, but I want to focus more on the artificial, which has to do with activities you and I perform or the fish perform that may deteriorate with the water quality. So in this tank where I lost a lot of fish, right, I would say that the factors that could, the artificial factors from my end that could cause the mortalities would have been on eating feed in the pond, probably I was overfeeding them. 2, I wasn't changing the water regularly as I was supposed to. 3 could be that the fish were also probably excreting a lot more, and then also there's also the probability that there were some 1 or 2 fish that died that I didn't see them to take them out early, and so they decayed into the water. And all of these things affect the water quality because they can increase your ammonia. Ammonia would now, which is very toxic to fish, will cause your fish to die. So the other thing around water quality that I would like to tell you is that some of you farmers, we do administer probiotics, drugs, medications, and a lot of some chemicals into our setups, right? And the introduction of these things into your setup could also compromise on your water quality, okay? And so if right now we realize that, okay, my water may be compromised or not compromised, what are the components I need to look out for? And so when it comes to fish farming and when it comes to the water you use to culture your fish, the first 2 components that you want to focus on is the physicochemical property of your fish, if I got it right, and that's the physical component of your water and then the chemical component of your water. Now, that sounds like a lot of things for you guys, but it's basically talking about the temperature, the ammonia, the nitrate, nitrite, the pH. Those things form the physicochemical component of your water. And then there's the biological component of your water. And these are generally talking about other living organisms that may be present in your tank. And so, for example, in this tank, if you follow me to this other tank, you can see that from my previous episode, we had the tank being very full. You could even see the mark over here. And then currently, you would see that when it was very, very full, these guys, it was difficult for you to see the bottom of the tank because of how green the water was. And all around the walls of the tank, if you check all around the walls of the tank, it was totally green and very smooth, okay? But then currently, as I'm speaking to you now, you can see some small patches. Instead of it being smooth, it is now like this. It is like this because when it comes to tilapia also do feed on other biological components in your tank like algae. And so the algae that is forming in this tank, because the fish tanks are under the sun, and when it comes to fish farming in Africa, and especially in Ghana, freshwater fish farming, either catfish or tilapia, it is normally ideal that you allow a lot of sunlight into your setup. It reduces a lot of issues, and then when there's a problem of disease, it's easier for you to handle as compared to when you have a closed system under a shed where if there's an outbreak of disease, it could spread very quickly. So in this tank, what I have to do now is I change water from all of my tanks from time to time. I just make sure that I check what we call the turbidity of the water, but then also I look at the fish as well as to how they are reacting and behaving. And because normally, because I'm not aerating this particular tank, in the evenings when I come here, I see the fish, they come up to the surface of the tank, and then it's as if they are gasping for air. So there are times where you realize that it will be a stream, and then during those times you could change the water. But yeah, I had this tank, I hadn't changed the water in this tank for close to about 2 weeks, and I wasn't really seeing any mortality. The only thing that I would say is because I wasn't changing the water as much and I wasn't aerating, though I didn't have a lot of mortalities, the growth rate in this particular tank has been very, very slow as compared to the other tank, which I used to aerate, but as I'm speaking to you now, I haven't aerated the tanks. And it's been about 4-5 days now. So I'm not aerating these tanks, and then these tanks too, I'm currently not aerating any of my tanks. But then just for research purposes, I'll try and aerate these guys and then see if there will be any significant changes or drastic changes between them and then these guys. Another thing that I need to also take note is when these guys start growing and they are excreting a lot more, as I said, and I mentioned a lot of different factors that could affect the water quality. These guys could probably have their water being dirty faster than I think, and so I have to pay attention to them, and then I would have to probably sort them into another tank or probably gift them to a friend. I'm even planning of gifting them to one of my friends to also continue culturing them in his tank. So taking care of fish is generally all about having the time and then paying attention to them. I do feeding of twice in a day, morning and then evening, and I want to try and see if how they respond to feeding. Because of the water, how good the water looks as well, I can see that the fish is very responsive to the feed. Now, before I change the water in this tank, when I pour feed into the tank, they are not very, very responsive to the feed. But then after a good water quality, I mean, because I've changed the water, I can see that they are more responsive to the feed that is being given to them, which is a good thing for you as a farmer to pay attention to. If the water quality is very bad, the fish would decide not to eat. And so these are some of the few things. And then also talking about the physical-chemical components or properties, right? I mentioned that there's something called temperature. Now, temperature is very crucial for fish farming. Okay, so if the temperature is warmer, what will happen is that your fish, they would metabolize faster. That is, they would be able to convert what they've eaten and then into maybe a bit of some weight faster. And then, so during those times when the temperature is warm, you'd realize that the tank will get dirty a little bit more faster because your fish is kind of like metabolizing a little bit more faster. It also means that when the weather is very cool, your fish may not eat as much as they're supposed to, and then it means metabolism will slow down. Also, there's a direct relationship between temperature and then what we call the dissolved oxygen. So dissolved oxygen is basically the amount of oxygen which is available for your fish in your tank. Yes, we know there's oxygen all around, but there's an amount of oxygen that should be available to your fish for them to consume to grow. And so if the temperature is is warmer, you have a lot more dissolved oxygen in your tank, which is also quite ideal. And then when the temperature is cooler, you have also less amount of dissolved oxygen in your tank. So farmers should just pay attention. If you realize that there are times where where you live, the climate, the environment is becoming a little bit cooler, if you are feeding the fish, let's say 50 grams, and they are not eating the 50 grams, it's not that probably there's something wrong with the fish. No, it's because their metabolism is slow, and so they are not going to eat as much as they're supposed to. Also meaning that if you continuously feed them with the 50 grams, you are going to deteriorate the water quality, which I mentioned that it's not static. You're going to deteriorate it to a more faster rate. So yes, I'm just feeding these guys. I'll move on to the next tank and then feed them too as well. So the idea with this channel is to teach you a lot more when it comes to fish farming. And there's a little bit of a difference between this tank and then that of this tank. The water for this tank was changed just yesterday night. I took quite some amount of time to do the water change. And then now there's this tank, which now doesn't have any aeration going on in there. And then, yeah, and it's not clear for you to see what's happening in the tank. But then the water for this was changed also, I should think, not too long ago, probably around like Friday. And so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, today's Tuesday. So there's a lot of time for the fish to enjoy whatever they have here. So I'm going to feed these guys too, and then we'll see how they respond to the feeding. So by observing this, you can also see that we aren't really seeing the fish coming, even to come and eat at all. Some of these things could also be a sign that you have to change the water. But then yeah, I just saw just one come around, but then the rest. So this feed could now deteriorate the water quality, change a lot of things in the tank. That is if the fish decides not to feed on this. All right, so you realize they didn't finish eating whatever feed I placed on top of the tank. And that is one of the things we need to pay attention to when it comes to fish. When it comes to feeding of fish, you don't just come and feed them. Sometimes spend some time to try and pay attention to them, look at how they are responding, and if they are not feeding, there's no need for you to go ahead to feed them. I want to quickly see if I can get some fish to see any weight. Yeah, they are. These are like very, very small size because we lost like quite a lot of them, but this is not a bad size. Normally, because I'm not going to the bottom, but then generally you normally see a lot of the big ones. They tend to go to the bottom of the tank. Exactly what I said. So like this one is way bigger. Yeah, so I do think I need to pay more attention to these guys. But yeah, that's generally what is going to happen in a lot of our farms and in our tanks if we are not able to pay a lot of attention to our fish. These are just to highlight some of the mistakes you could be doing in your farm. And so please give me some feed. All right, good. So then let's go to the most exciting group, and that is the catfish. Now, the water for the catfish also was changed, I think on Friday. Yeah, because I went out. So let me see also how they are going to respond if I am to feed them. But yes, so what this means is maybe later in the night, I'll just do a quick water change for my catfish. I am seeing a faster growth rate with the catfish as compared to that of the tilapia. But the catfish are supposed to eat faster than this. It's also a sign that the water quality has deteriorated, and that is because the water has been here for quite a couple of days. So these guys were like 7 grams. In our next episode, I would weigh them for you guys to see whether we are making an improvement in this tank or not. So the last bit of this whole episode is going to be around why is it important for you to maintain good water quality. It is important for you to maintain good water quality for a lot of reasons, but I'm just going to mention 4. The first thing is going to boost the survival rate of your fish. The second thing is that it is going to help in the reproduction of your fish. The third bit is that it's going to boost their growth rate. And then the last thing is that it's going to help them to be more healthy. So these are the quick tips that I have for you in this episode. We have our training coming up. That is the Lartman Farms Fish Farmers Training, You can join online or in person. And in the training, we are going to discuss these things and a lot more. If you want to join any of our trainings, there will be a link in the description section that will teach you how you can join the training. It doesn't matter whether you're in Ghana or outside of Ghana, you could always join this training to learn more and understand the life of these creatures who later will bring money into your farm. Catch you in our next episode. Bye.